Hello and welcome back to CWU Live. I'm Michael Walker. The frosty weather is the theme of tonight's show, and I have the perfect guest, Jamie McGovern, the Health and Safety Lead for the Union. We're going to be talking about the issues that CWU members might face in the icy cold. Obviously, this is especially for the postal section of the Union, who are at the coal face, I suppose, of weather like this. And we got quite a lot of comments already from you guys on Facebook. We will be taking your questions throughout the show, so do put those in the YouTube comments. Before I go to you, Jamie, we are going to show a few photos because we put up a post on Facebook today and people did reply with some images of them from today. So this is Andrew Rogers' route. So you can, I think that's his postie van there, isn't it? You can see that looks incredibly frosty, incredibly snowy. This is a good one. So this was a screenshot that was sent in reply to our post. I'm not actually sure who is the postie in this, but it's someone who's posted into a different group saying, made of tough stuff, our postman battling through the blizzard in his shorts to deliver our mail. I'm not sure if, Jamie, you would recommend that, shorts in this weather, but... Well,
certainly posties are hardy people, so I wouldn't be able to wear shorts, that's for sure.
We've also got one from Anthony Lawn there. I mean, that looks like a tough job, clearing the road in front of his van. And this one was a bit cheeky. Chris Woodhead posted this. I think he's on holiday, perhaps in Thailand, looking a bit pleased with himself. Jamie, let's get straight into it. What do CWU members need to know about cold, frosty, icy weather?
Well, there's a few things really. I mean, we see a number of risks. Certainly CW members, one of the risk issues we're trying to raise awareness of is vulnerability through health conditions, which lots of various safety reps and lots of local safety reps will be supporting on this, but we do see vulnerability in cold weather linked to certain health conditions. So I've mentioned a couple to you previously, the likes of pregnancy is a big risk issue when it comes to cold weather because of the risks for obviously the person and the unborn child. But these people should be protected by individualised risk assessments. So anyone who's pregnant should have the option there to look at control measures with the manager and the safety rep, and that can include making sure the pregnant worker doesn't go out in any kind of severe weather. Other conditions to mention in terms of vulnerability, conditions like dyspraxia, which not a lot of people are aware about. It's a coordination disorder, but there's hypersensitivity to cold weather for people with dyspraxia, and they really struggle in cold weather. Probably the most common condition that's known about is Raynaud's disease, where people will see the hands will go white and the feet will go white and they'll lose sensation. But with Raynaud's disease, again, protected characteristic, there should be risk assessments in place to protect people with Raynaud's, even to the fact that people can have a specialised PPE. So in Royal Mail Group, the disability team helpline will allow for like shearling line boots, silver threaded gloves, etc., to maintain thermal comfort. But Raynaud's disease can basically make people incapacitated, where they struggle to drive a vehicle, they'll struggle to handle mail because they lose sensation in the hands and the feet. So that's a real condition we're trying to raise awareness of. I'm trying to say to people, if you've got these conditions, speak to your manager, make sure the reps are involved, and let's get some protective measures in place.
Yeah, let's stick on these sort of particular vulnerabilities. We're going to talk about all different sorts of risks, sort of driving risks, which everyone in the union, or most people who drive or face in the union, sort of slips and trips. There were lots of comments on the Facebook about equipment and uniform, so we'll go through all of these. Okay. But let's stay on vulnerabilities for a while first. I have to admit, I only heard of Raynaud's when you mentioned it to me about half an hour ago. So how common is that? So that's a circulation issue, is it? Where you struggle with circulation to your hands and feet in cold weather? Yeah,
it's very common, and lots of people that we've supported over the years didn't actually realise they had Raynaud's until we spoke to them. Many people will experience this on delivery. Sometimes people will just suffer with the cold particularly, but that condition, Raynaud's, is very impactful. So what we're trying to do is raise awareness about Raynaud's, and also share examples of risk assessments, because we have got like genetic templated risk assessments that we can share with branches and reps to show them what the control measures look like for Raynaud's. In certain conditions with Raynaud's, for example, in some points people need to be taken off the driving when they're really struggling with the condition, and obviously it's very impactful for individuals. And then even like concessionary allowance for if they do manage to stay on driving, maintaining heat in the cab to make sure that they can maintain some thermal comfort. But the PPE works really well for Raynaud's condition.
And you mentioned risk assessments a couple of times. How does that work? Who does the risk assessment? Is that done by Royal Mail? Is that done by the union? Is it done by the individual?
A bit of both, really. The responsibility sits with the employer. So obviously the employer wants a protected characteristic is known about. The employer has an obligation then, if it's a disability, to make sure a disability risk assessment is done first and foremost. The union can support as well. The local safety reps can be involved. The area safety reps can be involved. On some occasions, the area safety reps are more skilled than the local manager. So it's the area safety rep who does the risk assessment, but the manager then owns the duty of care responsibility. So with pregnancy, for example, now we'd be looking for people to review their new mother or new and expectant mother risk assessments, because every third trimester, for example, they should be reviewing the risk assessment for pregnancy. So trimester 1, which is weeks 1 to 12 of pregnancy, trimester 2, which is 13 to 28 weeks of pregnancy, and trimester 3, 29 to week 40 of pregnancy. These are really key risk assessments to make sure people understand they need to be done. And in the third trimester, people need to be working indoors, not working in isolation, when they're pregnant, especially in conditions like this. We cease loan working for all pregnant workers or there should be cessation of loan working in weather conditions like this.
And when we showed that picture of the gentleman in his shorts walking around in the snow, you said posties are hardy people.
Yeah.
There's always a risk with hardy people, which is that if they've got a vulnerability, they might ignore it. They might sort of underplay it. They might say, "Oh yeah, I mean, I do sometimes not feel my hands on my feet when I'm out in the cold, but I've got a stiff upper lip. I'll just roll with the times."
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's got that tendency, let's say?
Well, if they're struggling and are genuinely struggling, don't ignore the risks. Make sure there's a conversation that occurs, because there is entitlement under employment law to review risks and make safety decisions. And we're trying to raise awareness of that as well. People are empowered now by the health and safety laws that exist to make safety decisions purely if they need to suspend the mail or suspend their deliveries and make a safe decision rather than carrying on in dangerous conditions.
I can see there's lots of comments coming in. I will be going through those quite soon. Finally, on this issue of vulnerabilities, how do you find Royal Mail management to be about this? Do you find that when they're sort of informed about someone having a disability or a condition, that they deal with it quite well, or is this an issue where sometimes people have to fight for recognition?
From my experience, it's very hit and miss. It can be, and obviously there's been recent work done on the health passport, raising awareness about vulnerability, and now under the severe weather processes that Royal Mail have, there should be conversations about vulnerable people in those delivery offices. How will the weather significantly impact on them with their health vulnerability? Even people like cardiovascular conditions, certainly in cold weather, they will be classed as another vulnerable person where certain conversations need to be had.
Sorry, why? I'm sometimes educating myself here when it comes to these health conditions. What's the relationship between cardiovascular problems and cold weather?
It's the blood circulation. So in the same way that you have dyspraxia where the blood vessels constrict, it's the similar conditions with like Raynaud's and dyspraxia for cardiovascular. So blood circulation is crucial.
Of course, that makes lots of sense. The other big theme we were talking about earlier is driving risks.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Introduce us to what CWU members need to know when it comes to safe driving in frosty weather, I suppose, in particular.
I mean, that is a big issue for us. Occupational driving risks, they really do go high when it's severe weather like snow and ice. Some of the key messages is making sure you're driving a safe vehicle, because obviously when people drive onto the public roads, it's expected of them to be driving with their responsibility, that they've done the vehicle checks, they're driving a safe vehicle. And don't be afraid to sit tight if the vehicle is unsafe. If you identify issues potentially with the tyres, for example, Royal Mail will change the tyre at 2 mil, legal limit is 1.5. But don't be afraid to sit tight if you're not comfortable that there's an issue with that vehicle, because really, once you drive on the public road, the responsibility on you as a driver then kicks in. And then obviously, if you're involved in a road traffic collision, what we've seen over recent years is when road traffic collisions occur, the police will take a real close focus on the vehicle, and the vehicle will come under scrutiny, and they will expect the individual to make sure that they're driving a safe vehicle. And little simple tips like making sure the windscreen is fully clear before they drive off site onto the public road, because that's a potential fine and penalty points if they're pulled over. It's simple little things, make sure your vehicle is in a roadworthy condition.
And you were saying, so there is the issue, if you have an accident, then the first thing the police are going to do is look at the state of the vehicle. You're also saying it's often the case that police might just pull over people to check their vehicles, and they often actually especially seem to go for postal vehicles.
Yeah, we've seen that in recent times. So, like, what a lot of the police forces will have, they'll have like certain like targeted sort of road safety campaigns at this time of year, because we're getting towards Christmas, and there's potentially drink drive campaigns around the corner. So you'll have things like police forces doing Operation Dark Night, raising awareness of Project Edward, which is like every day without a road death. So they're out there, and then we do see more focused activity, and certainly over the last 2 years, I know up in the northwest, we did see a lot of red fleet being pulled into stop and check zones. We had lots of feedback in the northwest region last year that they even thought red fleet was being targeted. We had a conversation with the police, and he said, no, it's not that case. We're just pulling in, fleet drivers to check over the vehicles as part of a Christmas or a winter safe driving campaign.
And again, I suppose, going back a bit to the sort of point about hardy people sort of thinking, well, it'll probably be okay. Presumably there's a tendency to think, well, if I can see there's a slight problem with the vehicle, but it'll probably be fine. And if I do wait for it to get fixed, we'll get behind on our deliveries. Maybe the manager will be a bit annoyed. Let's just hope for the best, fingers crossed. Do you think that is a common attitude? And how big a problem is that if it is? Yeah,
and also I think sometimes people will say that the manager knows best. We're saying trust your instincts. If you have an inclination that that vehicle is not right, it's not safe, don't forget you carry the can when you go on a public road. When you're driving that vehicle, make that safe decision. Even if you have to sit tight and say, no, I'm not moving until the wheel's changed. There's going to be a lot of pressure on frontline drivers because of the mail operation. But what we're saying to people is think about the Road Traffic Act and the potential penalties. The CWU and Dave Joyce, he campaigned for many years on new tyre safety laws, and tougher penalties for people who were involved in dangerous driving offences. So we've campaigned on this for years, and it's just a reminder to people to say, just don't make that unsafe decision. If you believe it's unsafe, sit tight.
And is there a tendency for managers to cut corners, do you think? Do you think they tend towards saying, it's the worst thing to happen would be for us to get behind on our deliveries, so hope for the best?
I think when there's key performance indicators for managers, they can try and persuade people or try and influence people, but ultimately those managers don't carry the real penalty. Is the driver who's going onto the public road, who should understand that if something does go wrong or a road traffic collision occurs, the way the police work now is there's scrutiny. We have had people arrested under caution, in recent times, so thankfully when they're arrested, if the vehicle's in a safe, state, then the focus of attention will switch on to other things. But, the police will put that vehicle under serious scrutiny.
Yeah, and so sort of members should know that if their manager is trying to get them to cut corners, say, look, mate, it's not you that would be liable, it's me that would be liable if I get pulled over, which means I'm putting my foot down, essentially.
Yeah. And it's even in this Royal Mail Severe Weather Guidance document to say we want staff to feel empowered to make safe decisions, and that includes maybe making that decision to say, no, it's not right for me to drive out with that vehicle. We've heard people say, it's only a brake light, it's just an indicator, you'll be fine. We're saying to people, look, think about the consequences, potentially of driving that, unroadworthy vehicle out there.
Let's talk about slips and trips. So presumably this is more for people when they're doing their walking round.
Yeah.
It could be a pavement which is icy, could be just someone's front driveway which is icy. What do people need to know when it comes to slips and trips?
Well, again, they're empowered by the dynamic risk assessment process, which is again encouraged on Royal Mail standards. So that's look, consider, decide, and then make a safe decision. And also, I mean, I mentioned to you about the P6705 sticker, excuse me, which is basically, and it's an endorsement of the fact that they have done a dynamic risk assessment and they've made a decision that it wasn't safe to carry on up at that pathway or down that road. And that sticker can cover, individual properties, whole streets, with certain unsafe conditions mean that mail can't be delivered. That sticker is the protection that people need to say, look, I've done a dynamic risk assessment, I've made a safe decision. And slip trip risks are obviously very evident when it comes to, frost and ice. But we do see a big spike in accidents, slip trips, and I'll be honest, the worst ever injury I ever saw was a slip trip event, which resulted in a catastrophic head injury. So we're trying to raise awareness that slip trip risks, they can result in major radar injuries, traumatic brain injuries, broken bones. So it's about making safe decisions at all times.
So I think we might be able to get up a picture of this form with this sticker, because you said that this is actually not as widely known about as you'd like it to be. So people in their delivery offices should have a roll of stickers like this.
Yeah.
And then if on your round there is a road or a particular house that you think is not safe to deliver to,
exactly,
then you can put this sticker on either the sort of pack of letters if it's a whole road, or on the individual letter if it's just someone's driveway.
Exactly that. It was actually designed by a CWU Safety Rep Christian Care. It was designed about making sure people feel empowered to make that decision, and it covers everything from dogs, hazardous, unsafe conditions, severe weather is included in there. But again, we don't think that's as widely known about as what it should be. There should be many reels of these stickers in delivery offices, but we want our safety reps out there reminding people that they can use these stickers and endorse the mail.
And again, if a delivery person is worried that they put this sticker on, they go back to their delivery office and their manager is like, this is just a bit of ice and now we're going to miss our targets. What would you say to them? Well,
that's where basically the reps and the area safety reps need to get involved, because what we're trying to prove is people have followed the due process, and people should be commended for this, for not taking risks, because we see far too many people who are involved in slip trip risk issues and they have accidents, and then the scrutiny does come on, where Royal Mail will look, actually, should you have done a dynamic risk assessment? So we always say, look, make that safe decision. Dynamic risk assessments are often misunderstood. It's a simple decision. Look, consider, decide. And we always say, always err on the side of caution.
Mm-hmm. We'll go to your questions in one moment. Before we do, I know one other topic you mentioned earlier was health alerts and weather warnings, the difference between them. I suppose actually what are health alerts and weather warnings to be?
Yeah. I mean, people think they're one and the same thing. I mean, the health alerts come from the UK Health Security Agency. So basically, it's any kind of issue that creates a health impact for the UK. So the likes of weather. So now I know, looking at the health alerts today, there's a health alert now on the cold weather that's up and coming. So Met Office weather alerts just concentrate on weather. The UK Security Health Agency look at all kinds of health impacts. And now we know cold weather, and the type of conditions we're going to be experiencing over the next potentially few weeks and months is a health impact issue. So they're two slightly different alerts, but definitely worth taking notice of both.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to some questions. I'm actually going to begin with some questions from the Facebook post before going to the YouTube comments, and I'll sort of group them together. So there are actually quite a lot of people commenting about uniforms.
Okay.
So Heather Smith says, the coats should actually be waterproof for a start. And then Anthony Brown has replied to say, I've had to buy my own waterproof, windproof jacket as Royal Mails are useless. It's brilliant and I'm dry as a bone every day when weather is bad, hoping it will stop me being poorly, which I usually am every winter. It's called being proactive, although managers probably don't see it that way. So someone's saying the Royal Mail ones, the Royal Mail jackets aren't good enough. Anthony Brown saying he's taken his initiative to go buy his own. Someone actually also in the shorts, this isn't a complaint about the uniform, I think this is someone being very hardy. Danielle Petrosino said, I'm out in shorts today, -5, lol. It's the footballer in me waiting for the call up or the call to retire or fall over and be off for 6 months. We love it. So there's a particular attitude there. I don't know if maybe advisable, maybe not.
Yeah, fair play there, but I wouldn't be doing that at my age. But the actual question on the waterproof jackets is really relevant. So we had this feedback last year, and then we contacted the Royal Mail uniform team, and they got all these jackets sent to them that people complain about waterproofability, if you like, on the jackets. And we found out that certain detergents, when they're washed, can actually take the waterproof nature of the jackets away. So there's like a recommendation to wash waterproof Royal Mail jackets in soap flakes, but they will take the jackets back and provide a new jacket if it loses its waterproof effect.
Oh, so that's really useful information. So you think these jackets are waterproof unless they've been washed a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you have washed them a certain way, or if for whatever reason they've stopped becoming waterproof, you can tell your manager, I need a new jacket because this is no longer waterproof, and they have to say yes.
Well, basically last year when we had comments and feedback from people who were saying they weren't waterproof, we got them sent to the uniform team, and everyone who sent a jacket got a brand new jacket in return. So yeah, it can be replaced.
Monkey 55500 in the YouTube comment says, I use my own Gore-Tex jacket, only way to stay dry. That's not about uniform. Sorry, I just got slightly confused there. I thought something was about something that it wasn't about. Shoes. Anthony Cracknell says, new shoes that don't feel like you have bricks tied to your feet should be something pushed for alongside a proper waterproof coat. Shoes that feel like bricks attached to your feet. Have you heard that complaint before?
Yeah, often. Often heard about that. I mean, we were down in Farringdon recently, and we looked at some of the new uniform concept design with the new shoes, and they do look really more user-friendly, should we say, now, some of the new designs that are coming out. But just to raise awareness on footwear, all the Royal Mail footwear is tested to ISO standards. So we're just saying to people, think about potentially, the benefit.
Remind me what the ISO is.
So ISO is International Standards Organization, where they go through a number of tests, like anti-slip resistance, impact capability, waterproofability. So all these tests are done. So the Royal Mail safety shoe goes through more tests because it has steel toe caps. But the Royal Mail occupational shoe goes through similar tests, but it's more for like anti-slip use, and they'll check like traction and what they call slip resistance value on the shoes. So the key issue with this is if someone is unfortunate to have a slip trip accident, the scrutiny may go on the footwear. So if people are wearing their own footwear and they haven't been exempted and they haven't got a 3-year exemption from the doctor to not wear Royal Mail footwear, they may come under scrutiny for not wearing appropriate footwear. So we're just reminding them of the potential benefits of Royal Mail footwear because, they are, rigorously tested.
So that's important because you're saying, even if you find the shoes a little bit uncomfortable, do think carefully about wearing a different pair of shoes, because if you do slip, one of the first things Royal Mail managers will do is say, well, were you wearing the correct shoes?
Yeah.
And if they can say, oh, well, you're actually just wearing, unapproved boots or trainers, and therefore it's basically your fault if you've fallen over.
Well, in essence, we look at duty care issues, but certainly we've seen case examples where it's been voluntary acceptance of risk, where an individual has chose to wear inappropriate footwear. Should be challenged by the managers, really, but occasionally they're not. And we know people do prefer to wear, footwear that's lighter and more comfortable. But the benefit of any accident, the fact that you wore footwear would be the fact that you aren't sure for that task. If your tread is good and you're wearing Royal Mail footwear, then they will look at other issues as to why the slip trip event has occurred.
Let's go through a few more comments in the chat. One Can Lian, I'm not sure if I got the gap between the words correct. Why are office staff not allowed to work from home during this vile weather? No other company is this hard on their staff.
Well, in terms of delivery staff, it would be, I presume that's the question. It's
so this is specifically for office staff.
Office staff.
Because obviously a delivery worker can't work.
Well, in essence, that is a reasonable challenge then, because that could be a reasonable adjustment, because potentially the risks could outweigh, the actual, benefits of, maintaining work. Because, does it have to be in an office staff environment if it's severe weather? Potentially not. It's difficult for delivery office staff, obviously, because they are outdoor workers.
One Can Lian says, again, sort of as a follow-up, office staff, not just posties, please. We all work for Royal Mail and all pay our fees. Have you heard that as a complaint before from members that sort of they've been told they have to go into the office when it might not be necessary and when there might be risks involved with going in?
Yeah, we have heard that before. I mean, one of the big common complaints from office staff is overheating and inadequate source of heating within cold buildings. So, unfortunately, the way the law exists on that is the term comfortable is referenced on the health, safety and welfare regs. So if people are struggling with temperature indoors, it needs to be the majority of staff who are saying they're uncomfortable with the level of temperature and they can't maintain thermal comfort. But we do see a lot of issues in terms of indoor staff when heating may not be working as it should be.
M. Morgan says electric van batteries need replacing. Not enough charge to keep heating on. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. It's a common one, and also in cold weather as well, they can lose potentially 30% of their battery charge.
Because it affects the battery.
It affects
as well.
the battery as well. Yeah.
Any sort of tips or advice if someone's dealing with that?
Well, with that, I mean, it depends on the actual round as well, because most electric vehicles will only be doing short journeys. But if it's impacting on the ability to carry out the full task, then that needs to be raised up.
Sarah Jones says, is there a uniform for those with sensory issues? Due time. I'm not actually sure quite what. I might have misunderstood something there, but is there a uniform for people with sensory issues?
I'm not sure, but certainly then if it's a sensory issue and it's a protected characteristic, then that can be explored with like the disability helpline. Like I've mentioned previously with Raynaud's disease, you can get like shearing line shoes and silver threaded gloves for those conditions. So if that's a condition where the uniform wouldn't be deemed as suitable for her, then yeah, absolutely raise that up.
This is interesting. D. Raya says, well, that's funny because I've been told, this is on the shoes issue, well, I've been told to wear Nike Air Force Ones. I've been told they're okay to use, which then resulted in me being signed off after 5 days. Why? Because Royal Mail don't provide PPE for new starters. Is that the case?
No, it should not be the case. I mean, with that situation as well, if someone's wearing their own footwear, as part of the footwear policy, it should be checked anyway. So like the local safety rep and the manager would say, yeah, that's acceptable footwear. Does that happen all the time? Probably not. But that is a verification check when people do have to wear their own footwear.
There's some pushback on the idea that these coats are waterproof and the shoes are tested. So Hannah says, that's rubbish. Mine was brand new and still soaked through. LHD says, coats are not waterproof after half an hour of rain. Never mind the end of the shift. And then Adam Dyer on the shoes says, do they test them for walking 200,000 steps?
Well, listen, that complaint has to go to Royal Mail if people are saying, and that is, this is way of repeating what Royal Mail have told us. But I do know, because I've read the ISO tests on shoes, and it is thorough. And obviously, Royal Mail shoes used to have the ISO label on the tongue. I think some of them now have the ISO standard on the sole of the shoe. So we know that those ISO tests are done on the shoes. Certainly, if waterproof coats, aren't waterproof, then that needs to be a wider complaint. We did have lots of complaints last year about waterproof coats, and we sent dozens of them down to the uniform team to look at Royal Mail, and they came back and made that suggestion that using the right detergent when you're washing them can we actually protect the waterproof ability.
West Country Blue says, haven't seen that sticker for donkey years. So that's a referral to this, or a reference, to this sticker saying that the pavement or the drive isn't safe. They say we currently can't even get sacks in our offices, let alone a roll of stickers. Is that something you hear much? And also, what would be your advice to West Country?
The mail can be endorsed, though, even as an unsafe. You can write on it, like when you do with dogs, dog at large, DAL. And if you haven't got the grey sticker, you write on the mail why it was not delivered. But the grey stickers should be there because they are still a live sticker that is used for these situations.
And if it's not there, who do you ask? Your rep?
Safety rep, yeah, because there is that I know, and I know for a fact up in Merseyside. When I was an ASR up there, we had an abundance of them because, we were able to get a good supply in.
Show Me Light says, impossible workload, under pressure to get parcels delivered. No postal worker has time to do risk assessments properly. That sounds like that could be quite a big issue. If you're feeling really overworked, and obviously a risk assessment takes a bit of time, do people have enough time to do them?
Well, dynamic risk assessments are very quick. dynamic risk assessments are look considered design. They can be literally seconds. I mean, the obviously the vulnerability risk assessments, they do take longer, but that is absolutely in the interest of those people who may need a disability risk assessment or a health passport. They do take longer, but actually dynamic risk assessments are really quick.
And that's just sort of saying it's very icy,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to deliver the mail.
Is
that what a dynamic risk
It's looking at the
means?
situation in front of you, making a safe decision, and that decision-making process is protected by Royal Mail's policy and also Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act. What people can't do with Section 44 is say, we're all going to use Section 44. It's individualised use of Section 44 under the Employment Rights Act to say, look, this is unsafe, I'm not going there, and I'm making a safe decision.
And just so I'm clear, this dynamic risk assessment, does someone have to fill in a form when they
No.
do that? It's
No.
it can just be in your head,
Yeah.
or you have to write it down somewhere, or what's
No, well, a dynamic risk assessment, you may get questions as to why mails come back, but basically you explain as part of the due process, you've undertaken a dynamic risk assessment, and that road or that circumstance made, it undeliverable on that day.
Yeah, so you don't have to write anything down at the time.
No, and it can be anything. It can be dogs, it can be a flooded road, it can be severe weather, for snow and ice. It can be a number of factors.
What if your office doesn't provide de-icer for your van?
Well, they should do, because all the actual severe weather preparation checks have been done now, and they've been done previously for summer weather. So it's done twice a year, and obviously your fleet champions and under these severe weather preparation checks, that should be basically verified. Also, at the moment, we've just come up with a new 25-point checklist for ASRs, area safety reps, and workplace safety reps to do, look at this over the peak period, because de-icer and scrapers are really essential pieces of kit.
I suppose this is related to the de-icer, isn't it? But M. Morgan says vans constantly being driven on the road with frozen windshield washers, never enough screen wash. So again, that's you'd say in that situation, if you've got frozen windshield washers, you should say, I'm not going out.
Yeah, well, especially if your actual windscreen then becomes obscured with dirt, then potentially looking at a Road Traffic Act offence. And again, we say to people, don't forget to de-ice the whole of your windscreen as well. We don't want a shoebox size like little gap where people are looking through as they're driving on the road, because under the road safety laws, you've got to make sure your whole of your windscreen is clear. So maybe sit in the van and make sure you use your heaters, if they work, of course, and get your screen fully de-iced.
Why don't they? So I think there's been a few mentions of sort of if you've got a tracked mail, then that overrides health and safety because people think it's so important to get it out, or the management thinks it's so important to get it out. And Adam Dyer says, why don't they limit the amount of tracked we take? If I take 120 tracked, I can clear 2 frames. Any more than that, and letters come back having to redo the work the following day. I suppose that's slightly different from sort of the health and safety in the cold weather issue. But do you find that people are under more pressure when there's tracked mail?
Absolutely. Whether it's tracked mail, registered mail, people are under pressure. We know that for a fact. But that, the category of mail doesn't override the fact that people have an employment right to make a safe decision. And we're saying, don't succumb to the pressure. If you think that it's a risk issue and you could be presenting yourself with a real dangerous situation, just do not go there.
A couple more points on footwear. Neil Lee says, I tell staff if they can't wear the footwear to see the doctor and get a letter and hand it to the manager. I had an issue a few years ago.
Yes,
that's a piece
good
of
advice.
Piece of advice there. And then there was someone else. So Gilera says, I have flat feet and I have until recently been paid for my footwear. Has this stopped? Because I have been waiting 6 months for my reimbursement.
No, the reimbursement process is still there. I mean, it depends if the person follows the due process. So you need to get a doctor's note if you're exempted for whatever reason from wearing Royal Mail footwear. I think it's every 3 years. You need to get a doctor's exemption note. That's put on the Royal Mail system. And then they're taken out of the uniform allowance for footwear, and there's a reimbursement process. And also, with flat feet, there's a reimbursement process as well for insoles. So if people need a specific type of insole, you can get a reimbursement for your shoe and a reimbursement allowance for the insole too.
The P6705 sticker, is that what this is?
Yes.
Yep. So someone said, where do we get the P6705 stickers? You were saying speak to your
local rep. I've got a feeling officers will be inundated after this, because they should be there, especially in these circumstances. They should be out there, because every P6705 sticker can be used for dogs. And we know the situation with dogs is not just unique to severe weather.
Yeah, so we've done an episode on dogs quite recently, didn't we, in the last few months? I'm just scrolling up. I think that's sort of most of them. Do you think there's any sort of more points that people need to know? We've covered quite a lot, haven't we?
We have covered quite a lot. I think really we know people are under colossal pressure at Christmas, and we know people feel like, they're serving the community as well. But when it comes to Christmas and severe weather, there are some really serious decisions to consider. The condition of your vehicle, potentially the condition of your footwear, the conditions you face on the road. And we know it's a tough old job, but we want people to feel empowered, not by the law that protects them, but also Royal Mail's own standards on severe weather guidance. In that guidance, it says we want people to feel empowered that they make a safe decision out on the streets.
Well, this is quite a good concrete question. Question for the CWU, show me lights. Can postal workers have the engine on in this weather whilst they are having their break?
Well, that's it. If they're staying inside the vehicle, there's two problems with that. Often when we see people de-icing vehicles, they will step outside the vehicle. And when they're de-icing the vehicle, that's classed as quitting the vehicle. So there's potential penalties you can face. There's a road law on that as well. In terms of staying in the vehicle, for likes of rain nodes, for example, that would be classed as a concessionary allowance for maintaining heat in the cab. So there are certain reasons why people can maintain thermal comfort in the cab. And sometimes if the weather is so cold, you need to keep the heating on to basically keep the windscreen clear.
There's still lots of people not sure about these waterproof jackets. I would recommend them probably speak to their rep and
absolutely, and
maybe some more testing.
And we sent dozens down to Royal Mail last year because this is a common complaint about the jackets. So if it is more widespread than we know about, then we need that information and that feedback.
Light, so posting in the dark. We haven't mentioned that. Someone says, Danielle Sales says, what about in the dark posting mail? I wonder, was this the same Danielle that was delivering in her shorts, or maybe that was a different
so
it was the
there
same
should
Danielle.
be an allowance for something called saber torches as well, because they're a kit that can be used as well. We make awareness of personal alarms in this weather, which are not just used for security, they're also used potentially if someone got into a distress situation. So the personal alarms, there was a campaign a couple of years ago, I think 2021, there's about 10,000 issued, but they are available on the Royal Mail catalogue. Personal alarms, which are potentially also useful because they have a little torch on them.
In defence of shorts, HQ Truman says the shorts thing is because you can't walk 200,000 steps. Is it 200,000 or 20? You can't walk 20,000 steps in trousers. Is that an issue? I find in the winter, and I'm not a postie, I find in the winter sort of the combination between being warm but not incredibly sweaty is always a tough one. The trade-off between getting incredibly sweaty delivering post all day and being cold delivering post all day is presumably a difficult one.
It's probably a fine balance, isn't it? I mean, some people, can cope with wearing shorts. I mean, certainly there's many others who need to be wearing long sleeve trousers, long slat trousers, and probably long johns underneath.
Let's wrap up there, I think. Final thoughts from you.
We just want people to feel that they can make safety decisions, because we know there's a lot of nervousness, and we know that people are worried about conflict when they go back. But again, I keep referencing that recommendation in Royal Mail's old guidance policy that people can make safe decisions. And also, don't forget they're protected by the law. And those P6705 stickers wouldn't actually exist if people weren't protected by the Employment Rights Act. So make those safety decisions, because, we can encounter dangers in this weather.
Jamie McGovern, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you guys all for your comments. Also, thank you for going out in the cold and continuing to deliver our mail. I'm personally very grateful for that. It doesn't sound easy. We'll wrap up there for now, and we'll be back next week. So good luck on these cold mornings, and see you soon. Stay with your union.